I'd like to talk about and explain and demonstrate the sitting posture and how we're actually going to do meditation. We're already sitting down, we're on the cushion, but if we're about to begin a session, we could almost begin the session by, as we walk towards the cushion, as we walk towards sitting down, that each step we take, what we should in our mind start saying to ourselves is that I'm about to begin meditation, and that I am really sort of kind of leaving my usual world, leaving the conventional world of my busy day or whatever it may be. And, even if we're meditating just for a very brief time, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, that we think family responsibilities, we're studying, we have an exam or something's coming up, just sort of saying, for now, let those thoughts go. And it's important just to say, I'm going to try to just let the bigger concerns I have go. And as I walk towards a meditation cushion, saying, I'm going to do peaceful abiding. I'm going to relax and understand and sit with the nature of my mind. And I'm going to strengthen my mind, stabilize my mind, develop the clarity of mind and strength of mind. And as we begin to do that, that's our intention. So we know we're doing that. Because if we don't do that, we just walk up to the cushion and plop down and just sort of haphazardly begin the meditation session, then it's going to be a very murky process. And when we actually began and when we're ending, everything becomes very convoluted. So really one of the most important things is just change of attitude and approach as we're beginning to sit down. We can look at the cushion itself as like a throne. We are a king or a queen or whatever sitting down on our throne. So there's a sense of purpose. And when we sit down, we become very powerful individuals. It doesn't matter whether we're sitting on a cushion or we're sitting in a chair, just so that we're something that is supportive and stabilizing and comfortable for the period of time. Now, the sitting posture is really the best of both worlds. Ideally speaking, I suppose, we could meditate in any posture. We could be meditating, lying down or walking. But most of us, if we lie down, we tend to fall asleep. If we're walking, it's too much stimuli. So it's able to kind of stabilize the mind. So the sitting posture is sort of the ideal between the two worlds. We're sort of resting, yet at the same time we're still awake. So, we have that kind of a good middle ground. And people have been sitting in this kind of meditation postures for a long time. And it is considered that this particular posture is really good for the breathing, the energy flow inside the body. And just by sitting down relating to the breathing, automatically we're going to be reducing in kind of anxiety, stress, discursiveness. The posture here is something that will take time to get used to. And as we proceed, it's important to realize that we don't necessarily always need to be stiff. We can move and shift. Now, when we sit down on these cushions, it's important. What we all have right now is called gomden. They're square cushions. You can also, at home, if you don't have meditation cushions, you can use a blanket and then fold another blanket behind or some cushions and sit on them. What you want to do is get your hips a little bit above your knees, ideally, so that there's some kind of a way for the hips and the seat bones to sit properly. How high the cushion is something that we need to adjust over time. We'll get a feeling for it. And when we're sitting, we can cross our legs, and we don't necessarily need to do, a full lotus or any kind of particularly complicated folding of the legs. And we may not be that flexible. It may be something we're not familiar with. So just simply crossing the legs. You can't see my legs, but they're crossed. I have to take my word. So, crossing legs, and on the cushion, not sitting too far forward. If I sit too far forward, I'm going to be pushed over. If I sit too far back, I'm going to be slouching. So you want to sort of find, usually just front of center is good. What I like to do is sort of imagine as though I'm being pulled like from a piece of string on the top of my head, just sort of up. So the vertebra, everything kind of gets elongated. And then just sort of, let it go. Almost as if I was like a string here. And then that elongates everything here. And then just kind of relax. You want the spine to stack one upon the other. It's said like gold coins, just one upon the other, allowing for the natural curvature of the back. So you don't want to be pushing it straight because the whole backbone is curved. So you want that posture. So balance is important, and it's okay when we're sitting down to rock side to side, so that we have our seat bones nicely on the cushion. As we sit there, we don't want to feel perched. We don't want to feel like we're about to fall off. So we want to feel good and comfortable. And especially because if we're going to do more meditation, we're going to be sitting there for a long time. The hips and the lower back are neither pushed forward. We don't want to push it forward like that. It shouldn't be like this. And obviously we don't want it caved in. Sometimes if you ride a horse, you can't be too far back and you can't be too far perched. So it's a nice medium area. So you want hip joints will relax over time. You don't want it holding on. So you're sitting in that way. As we go up, feeling the breathing, just relaxing the abdomen. The hands are sitting in this position, not too far this way, and not like this. If we do this, it's going to pull us forward. We're going to hold on. If we hear it might feel too tight with our shoulder blades. So it is a natural position, and again, hands shouldn't, fingers should not be spread too far. That's sort of a nice, simple posture. So hands, the back, the hips, the legs, as we move up, the neck. Chin is not out. The chin is slightly in. It doesn't need to be like this. Main thing is you don't want your chin sticking out, head hanging out like this. It just creates too much weight here. But each of us is going to have a different structure of neck and head, and it will be slightly different. Now we'll notice that our gaze, where's our gaze? Is it straight or is it lower? Sometimes, what you can do is look straight and then just bring your gaze down. And as you bring your gaze down, there's a sort of a natural place that it falls before it gets too tight. So if you look up, look down. Now, depending on what kind of meditation, if we're trying to really not have too much visual stimuli, we can bring our gaze really in. Traditionally, where the gaze is supposed to be is sort of 2 fingers above the nose. So it's, you can barely see the tip. So that's quite down. But it's, you can move it a little bit above. The thing is that you don't want to make it too high right now because maybe there's too many things you'll see. It will be too difficult to focus and too many things to look at. Again, with all the senses, starting with sight, we're seeing, but we're not looking. We're not, this is a very busy pattern here, so we're not looking at the pattern of the rug. What we're doing is we're just sort of, the eyes see it. And the same thing with sound. The sounds we hear, but we're not particularly listening to the sounds. This is the first basis where we're kind of beginning to sort of draw our senses in. And we're not drawing our senses in to ignore the world. We're drawing our senses in just for the purity of meditation to relax them. They've been all days having to be used. Seeing things, and obviously we need to see things if we're walking down the street. We're not going to be hit by a car and so forth. We're having a conversation, we need to listen to people. But here, just relaxing all that. We'll notice that our jaw is tight in the beginning, so all the facial muscles relax, so the jaw might slide forward slightly. Our tongue is relaxed. We'll notice that it'll touch if we relax the tongue, relax the jaw, we'll notice that the tongue will sort of rest naturally on the palate, and the tip of the tongue will touch the bottom part of the upper rows of teeth. This again allows for natural flow of saliva. We don't swallow too much. It relaxes the throat. As we begin to sit here, we'll notice that with the looking down, relaxing of the gaze, we'll notice our breathing. And this is the first stage in this meditation. It's called placement. There are 9 particular stages we go through, and this is called placement. It's the first stage, and it's the most important because it's going to start our meditation. What we're using as to focus our mind on, to stabilize and strengthen our mind, is the breathing. So what we do is, in a very natural way, we'll notice that we're breathing. Just by calming down, sitting down in the posture, we'll just notice the breathing. We're breathing out. The breath dissipates. There's this pause or space. Then there's inhalation into the lungs and down to the abdomen. Again, the air goes out. And what we do is we place our attention, we place our mindfulness, we place our focus on that breathing process. So we're just breathing out and in, out, and in. This is the majority of what we're doing here. We're just relaxing the mind, and if the mind needs a place to focus, which it does because it tends to go off, tends to be thinking. And once we have a thought, it generally will lead to some sort of heavy emotion, and all of a sudden we get very sort of involved and perturbed. We'll start, we may start thinking about food, and then we're thinking about the last time we had dinner with somebody, and then we realize that what they said and what we don't like them, and next time we want to tell them something, and then it goes on and on. And we're sitting here, getting really upset. And if you look at it, it seems pretty silly. This is the time to relax. We can get mad at them afterwards if we want, but not right now. So we're breathing. So this is mindfulness. Feeling the breathing. Sometimes we say following the breathing, following the breath. Learn how now, what focus we're putting on the breathing. Now, what we have to realize is the breathing is a moving thing. There's not going to be one point. It's continuously coming and going. There are many aspects to the breathing. There's the aspect of what it feels like when it's outside the body, what it feels like when it's inside the body. Maintain our mindfulness. As we maintain our mindfulness through this whole period, then what we're able to do is that's stabilizing and strengthening. It's the first sort of one of the most important and first aspects of meditation is learning how to strengthen and stabilize the mind. As we're able to pay attention, focus on the breathing out and the breathing in, we are strengthening our mind. So that is going on, out and in, out and in. If we hold it too tightly, if we're focusing too tightly, we'll get lost in the breath. Then we'll go off thinking. When we have a thought and when we find ourselves thinking, the most important step in that is the recognition that we're thinking. Oh, I'm thinking. Again, here in this meditation, there is no difference between a good, positive thought and a negative thought. If we're really caught up in a good thought and say, "Oh, this is a good thought," it's worth thinking about. Well, it may be, but not during this meditation, because it's meditation, and we've already told ourselves this. This is time meditation where I'm practicing strengthening the mind, letting go of those thoughts. So we let them go, and we come back to the breathing. So recognition is the first. Then we acknowledge the thoughts. We say, "Oh, that was thinking." It's a process of looking at it and almost labeling it. It's recognizing acknowledging thought, come back. And we do this kind of very quickly. When we have that moment where we find ourselves, oh, I have been wandering from my breathing, that's awareness. Another way to look at it is to see it as presently knowing. In Tibetan, this process of awareness is known as Sheshin. And Sheshin means presently knowing. We know what we're doing presently. We are aware of what we're doing. So the breathing is coming and going, coming and going. We wander off, we come back. We say, oh, I've been wandering off a lot. Maybe I should relax with my technique on the breathing. Maybe I should have it tighter. Maybe I should have it looser. That's something we have to try. This first stage in the process of meditation is just learning how to meditate, learning how to hold a posture, learning how to relate to the breathing, learning how to place our mind, learning how to coordinate labeling, recognition of thoughts, pulling back. So again here, this is the time when we need to give ourselves a little space. There are going to be many, many levels of thought, and we're not going to be able to come to just a completely peaceful stage. What will happen is we'll try to reduce the big thoughts. Initially, when we're doing this meditation, we don't want to be totally drawn away from the scene of meditation. We're in this room, we're meditating. We may have a thought about, posture. That's an improvement. Again, we'll have some thoughts, but even while having some thoughts, we can still maintain focusing on the breathing. And again, here, it's learning how to be patient, and simple. Again and again, the mind wanders off, bring it back. In the course of the session, again, it's not particularly an endurance test. We need to regather ourselves, redo the posture. We don't need to hurt ourselves. If something hurts, we should move. At the same time, we should just know our limits. We say, it doesn't. I don't need to move. I'm fine. Maybe other times where our knees pain and we should move. So the posture is very simple. Just cross-legged, sort of good posture. Our back and our head, our shoulders, our arms, everything is just sort of very, very we need to sort of recognize somewhere that this is an important activity we're doing. The more we become connected with the breathing and what the breathing brings, we begin to want to be here and follow the breathing. We need to empower the breathing so the breathing becomes more meaningful than all the thoughts that we feel like we want to be engaged in. Begin to feel the rhythmical aspect of the breathing. We're alive, human, sitting here simply breathing. this process of breathing and staying here, sitting here, obviously helps not only our mind, but it helps the body. It's helping the blood flow and the organs and the blood. It's purifying everything. So in this way, we just continue to meditate and continue to make adjustments every time we meditate. So that's basically the posture, and that's basically the technique. And it's up to you to do it.